So let's see.
Thank you.
There we go. Cool. Yeah, I am recording now.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So basically what you missed before I started recording, and let me just kind of step back. I'll do this again. So really what I'm doing is just taking a look at the baseline and then the X height of the letters just to see how consistent they are. They look really good. I'm going to actually change the color of my guides because I don't know how, can you actually see that blue guide that I'm dropping?
Yeah, I can see it fine.
Okay, cool. All right, perfect. So I'm just basically dropping in guides. And overall, I see right off the bat a few small tweaks that need to happen on that first line of type, but overall it looks really good. Like we're in great shape. It's gonna be small stuff. This one looks really good as well. The majority of those letters are nice and consistent. So, really same thing here with the lowercase. And I love that you took the the initiative to actually do some lowercase as well, even though it's not required. It's obviously that's going above and beyond, which is always awesome. Cool. So basically what I'm looking at with this, Kelly, is how they sit potentially on the, I'm going to tab this real quick, tab, and I don't know if you know this, tab in any Adobe application gets the palettes just to temporarily disappear. But I'm basically just looking and seeing how these line up. And in terms of tweaking these, I've got a couple suggestions because there's a few ways that you can go about this. So the first thing that I would be looking at with these is how many of the letters are lined up versus how many of the letters fall a little bit short. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm trying to calculate like where the majority of the letters sit, because ultimately I want to show you how to do this the quickest way. So if, for example, if a few are shorter than the rest, rather than adjusting the large majority of them, we'll just adjust the few. But overall, it looks like the B and the D and the G, and I'm going to say the N as well, because I think that looks pretty good. And then the O, those are all touching both the X line and the X height and the baseline. So it looks like overall, it looks like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it looks like 9 of them need to get tweaked versus what, let me write this down because I forget numbers very quickly. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 of them are looking pretty good. 9 of them are going to need some tweaking. Ultimately, looks like 9 of them fall just a touch short. But that's the majority. And actually, that's not a bad thing because it's not necessarily a good idea to enlarge, pixel-based graphics. Although in the end, they are going to be vectorized. So it's not necessarily a big deal. But ultimately, it's going to be easier for us to fix 5 than it is for us to fix 9. So what I'm going to recommend is that we actually set up our baseline and X height based on the shortest letters. Let's see, again, that would be 1, 2, yeah, it looks like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it actually does look like there's a few more. I think my math was off there, but not a big deal. This really won't take long to do. Essentially what you'd be doing is once you get your guides laid out, you're essentially just going to be taking the selection tool here, just drawing a marquee around them. And actually here, we want to make sure I'm on the right layer. The reason why it wasn't transforming when I did the Command T is that I was on your levels layer and not the actual artwork. But now if I do a Command T, I can basically just make a small tweak and get that looking good, and then just move right on down to the next one and making our tweaks like so. And I mean, it might take you all of about, maybe 10, 15 minutes,
Okay.
but it won't be so bad. Now, the other thing then that I would recommend, and obviously I'm not going to necessarily run down the whole line here, but it only took me less than a minute to do those 3. To get the next set to be consistent, then I would recommend just drawing a little spacer for you. So basically, I would just grab you can just do it with a shape tool and just draw yourself a shape that you know is the exact height of these. You can drag that on down. You can adjust your your guide, and then you can make your adjustment. The majority of these are really consistent. I would actually make the first adjustment to all of them as a whole. So I'm just drawing a selection on the whole group, and then potentially adjusting that because the majority are already looking pretty good. So, or at least consistent with each other. So it's a lot less work that I have to do. And again, it's just a matter of kind of running down and getting those set for yourself. And again, I'm only going to do a few here, but it shouldn't occupy a ton of time. Now, I do think it's okay in some cases if we have a portion of letter that goes down below the baseline, if you have any that are inconsistent. Like what I mean by that is like if one of these lines on the K are longer than the other, that's okay. You don't have to necessarily make the longest line the thing that we use on the baseline. It might look kind of funky if we do that on some of these, but overall they look really awesome. They really do. I would probably judge the waistline here, since these are looking a little bit smaller overall than these. I would potentially draw your spacer here on this last set. Let's apply that. And then potentially use that, and again, after you've made an adjustment, but then you can bring this up here. And what we'd be doing potentially is dragging a guide again on the waistline, so the halfway point to match this, that this does not, I'm not necessarily suggesting it goes all the way to the X type then. Right, let's see, looking good. So yeah, you would then potentially ready to start putting these into your what am I trying to say? Well, you can just one of two ways. So you can either you can bring these directly into the calligrapher template then at that point. And I say that because your line quality on these looks really good as it sits right now. However, if you do want to add more line variation to them, you could certainly take these then into Illustrator. And like you saw in the first tutorial that we watched the other day, you could use your like your brush tool. Actually, I would you can use the brush tool, and then you can then alter the widths just using a width profile. Is that something, do you know how to use like width profiles or the width tool inside of Illustrator?
No, I do
Okay,
not.
cool. I'll show you how to do that real quick. But I will say that your lines look really consistent. So I think you probably could just go from this directly into your calligrapher document, potentially just copying and pasting them from this into the calligrapher document. You'll want to open that calligrapher doc inside of Photoshop though to be doing that copying and pasting. But if you're looking for more line variation, you want them to have sort of a different feeling. In Illustrator, when you make a path, this could be with the paintbrush, it could be with the pencil, or it could even be with the pen tool. I mean, any of these, I wouldn't recommend that you go over them with the pen tool, though. That's going to be crazy. But basically, if you select any of your paths and then you click on the stroke, that will give you a whole bunch of properties. In fact, you're probably using like CC22, right? Is that correct, or at least something fairly new?
Yeah.
Okay, so yours actually won't be up top like this. It'll be in the the right-hand side in your property inspector. But the property inspector for your stroke will look the same. It'll have all the same data. And the very bottom of it, you've got an area that says profile. The basic default profile for any of your strokes is uniform, meaning it starts and continues the whole, like the same width the entire time. But that can be modified. There are a number of default, or I should say like presets that exist in here. And here, actually, I have to make this a thicker one, for at least on the brush for that, although is that not showing? It should at this point. should be showing that stroke profile. Let's see. No, it's up for uniform. Let's see. Just while I'm taking a look here. It's working on that. I don't know why it's not working on the brush. Oh, you know what? That's my bad. You actually have to use the pencil tool. The brush tool will not respond to that. So you would use the pencil tool, and then potentially you want to go more than one. If you ever use a width profile, you want to go more than a thickness of one, or else you're not giving it the option of having a whole lot of variation. But from there, you can go ahead and you can start to vary those. And the default ones, some of them are kind of nice, like the tapered one is nice. This one's pretty nice as well. It will potentially start small, get thicker, midway through get smaller, and then again thicker and small. This one and this one are my two faves, but there are there are some other ones that exist in here. You can have it go thin the majority of the time and then get fat, or sort of fat and thick in the middle. And then you can modify these yourself if you wanted to take it to that step. I wouldn't necessarily say to do it in the alphabet, but while we're on the conversation of this, kind of if you ever wanted to do this in some artwork, the width tool is a tool in your tool bar. And basically the way that it works is you can come close to a stroke that you've made. And if you hover near it and click and drag, let's see here, there we go, it will potentially allow you to, like, you can modify it. So this is based on where I'm grabbing it. It's just why it's doing it like this. So, and I'm going fairly extreme with it, but that's actually just a single path, even though it looks like a shape. Here, I'll do one more that is just sort of basic, and I won't even put a width profile on it. I'll just leave it as it is and just use the width tool, so it's not, nothing's really influencing it. But yeah, you can totally, you can make them thicker, you can make them thinner, you can, just sort of anywhere that you grab. It's not technically making a Bezier point in there. It's actually, it just makes these like little width handles. But of course, if you wanted to, you could work these to shapes. But again, a lot of the default ones, specifically these two, again, I've used this one occasionally. They even have like this cone one as well. That can be kind of valuable depending on what you're doing. That kind of gives you almost like a, I don't know, kind of whip shape. But if you wanted to add line variation, that's a great way to do it. And I keep emphasizing if, because I do feel like the line quality that you have currently in yours looks really good. So I'm only suggesting you do this if you had intended to potentially add that later. But the strokes and everything look really good across the board here. I mean, if I think if anything at all, Kelly, across the whole set of letters, the only letter that I see that has maybe some slightly inconsistent width compared to the others might be the Y. It's a little bit thin compared to a lot of the other lowercase. So that may be one that you want to consider, maybe either A, drawing again, or B, maybe combining your U and your J to essentially make that, you know what I mean? Like if you were to copy this over here, copy the U, maybe erase that little tail there, you could easily combine those two letters to create the Y without having to completely redraw it.
Oh, okay.
The only letter that I think that that I would recommend that you consider remaking, and otherwise they look nice and clean.
Thank you. Okay, got it.
Let's see. Let's that. And I'm going to open the cam, figure that look next. It should be in my downloads folder. Let's see here. So Cam, I would recommend one of two things with this alphabet set. There are a number of letters that are like the O, for example, or the D, or even the E, that just have some areas that just aren't the cleanest, like right in this area here, right in this area. here or here. I would say you've got one of two choices because that could become a style. I mean, it could be sort of a a clunky kind of grungy typeface potentially, but I would say that you'd want to almost intentionally mess up some of the other letter forms.
That's what I've actually been thinking about doing.
Cool. Yeah, I think that you could certainly do that. There is, shoot, I can't remember the name of the typeface. Yeah, I can't remember what the heck the name of it was, but I had an awesome typeface that looked like it was, you know how like, I don't know, like you'll see like handwritten signs from people that like it's obvious that this person is not an artist and like they've never like tried to like handwrite type on it, like on a garage sale sign or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you'll see like a for sale sign, like on and it's just it has that sort of like very very sort of amateur quality to it. I think that that's something that could be really cool and really fun to play with. Like potentially trying like the Q and the R kind of have that feeling to them. And I think that that could be awesome if you went that route. Same thing with like the O and the D. So I think you could play with those. Sometimes up with definitely with the Y and the Z. They almost look like they're sort of pixelated and like we're enlarged. So those are ones you want to go over as well. But from that standpoint, if you're going to go that route, I would say redraw the M and the W. Those are and the V. Those are probably too clean. I kind of dig the blocky kind of look that you've got here going on in the G as well as the A and the P. So maybe that's something that you consider. Maybe that kind of happens in like the M. Maybe the M is just sort of a box, a line coming down through it or something. Maybe same thing with like the W, that's sort of an upside down box with like a line. Yeah, that would be my suggestion to you. I love that you added some punctuation. I think that those will be helpful forms for you. The other thing too that consider, like again, if you end up redoing the M, the W, and the N, if you don't go with that sort of like box look, I would maybe consider changing the size as you go along of the line widths, kind of like you're doing on the Q. That could be kind of neat if we see a few more like that. Like you're doing it on the U, the A, the H, the Q. Not that all of them have to do that, but that might be something to consider on like the M. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe it's maybe it wouldn't look good, but you can always try it on one of them. It's like maybe two of the lines are thicker and two of the lines are thinner. The other thing I think that you could potentially do to really reinforce this look is to accentuate some of the inconsistencies. Like I like on the E how the one is shorter. If we're going to go for that sort of look, consider that maybe on I don't know, like on either the M or the W, maybe one of those angles is just shorter. Or actually, I think that's almost happening here. I like that. Like the one angle on the W is a little bit higher than the other one. So yeah, I think that's certainly something that you could consider. Regardless, if you don't end up taking those steps that I talked about, at the very minimum, you definitely want to rework the Y and the Z. Again, something's kind of going on here with them getting fuzzy. Final thing that I will say is, let's just kind of take a look real quick at the height on these. Cool. A, B, C, D are looking good. E and F are a little bit short. Again, if you're going to go though for that kind of look, I might actually say that's okay, Kim. And I would almost encourage them not to necessarily all be the same height. Otherwise, if you go the opposite route and you end up refining these, very much like what I was doing with Kelly's a few moments ago, you'll want to take some of these. Actually, let's see what's going on here. Just ungroup this real quick. I'm not sure what's, this is actually probably the fact that I'm bringing in a newer Illustrator document to an older version is why it's having a hard time with this. But basically, like you saw me doing with Kelly's, you want to potentially um, get the heights on these consistent. I would say, even though I'm definitely open to them being inconsistent, let's make sure that that we don't have some of the letter forms being like dramatically larger than the others. You know what I mean?
Bigger, yeah.
But otherwise, I would almost encourage you to be have you know, some variation from letter form to letter form for sure.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right, guys. So your next step is to get these then into that calligrapher template. Let's see here. You know, again, after making revisions. But let's just talk real quick about that. Since it's been a week since we discussed it last, let's see. So on the calligrapher site. Let's see here. What's that template? Let's see. This was the, it's just tutorials. You may actually have to sign up for it. Have either of you signed up for a calligrapher account yet?
Yeah, I did.
You did, cool. Kim, were you able to track down that template, the grid that they want you to end up using? Is that something that becomes accessible once you're in? Let's see. I'll find out right quick for us. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So yeah, we would want to potentially create that template. Now you can actually take that template though. You don't have to print it out. You know, we can just work entirely digitally with this. There's no reason to go that route. So potentially, let me get that downloaded real quick. PDF. Perfect. Cool. We're then taking that template on into Photoshop, and then we can begin to bring our letter forms then in here. So again, just some copy and paste is eventually what it boils down to. And again, I would make your tweaks first in your document with your guides. That way you don't have to keep doing them and over again here. It's just a lot easier to do, you know, potentially half your alphabet or more all at the same time. So one thing you may want to do that would make this a little bit easier. So if I do a copy and paste like this right now, it's only going to copy, Kelly, from your artwork layer. And if we want some things coming from the levels and the black and white, I'm going to want to do what's called a copy merged. A copy merged will essentially screenshot everything, although you don't, rather than keep, it's a like 3-key shortcut, which is not the worst thing in the world. But if you forget to do it on one, it's going to be slightly different. So potentially just do a save as in this document, just merge the whole thing. And that way you don't have to keep doing this wacky Command Shift C shortcut. But potentially, when you copy and you come on over here, I will show you one more quick tip on this. when you bring this over, you're gonna have a hard time kind of like seeing how it potentially sits within here. Shoot, in fact, let's see. If I would do this, so you don't have to keep doing this. Okay, well, one thing at a time. What I was going to suggest to you first of all is when you bring this in, it's going to have part of its white background. Okay, you can get the white background to go away by sending your layer blending mode to multiply. But what I'm thinking here as I'm making the suggestion is, again, I want to try and make this as painless as possible. And rather than having to like continually shrink these over and over and over again, it might be in our best interest to make a spacer here in this document. Because if I remember correctly from the tutorial that we watched, this is how we potentially bring these in. This is our baseline. This is our X height over here. But so that you're not shrinking every single one of those letter forms after you've already adjusted them here. Here's what I'm going to recommend. At least this is what I would do. Okay. I would make my spacer here in this document. Bring that on over into your document with your fonts. I would maybe do this before. Let's do this before I flatten this all down. Okay. So if I bring this over, it's like so, and then you can go ahead and make your adjustments to these letters all at the same time. And again, this is based off of that, that height. So again, we can do our tweaking. So this kind of substitutes from what I was mentioning earlier. It's just a small tweak on it, where I'm maybe suggesting that you do them now based on that. Otherwise, it's like double work, which I don't want you guys to have to be doing double work if we can avoid it. Okay, so I'll just do the 4 for now. And let's just make sure that that works the way that I'm thinking that it should. And the blending mode of multiply will get the white to go away. It's fitting, that's looking good. Yeah, they're looking good now. And actually, you know what, Kelly, you already got these separated on their layer. We might not even have to. I don't know that those adjustments, I don't know that the level in black and white are actually really doing anything for you. So you can probably just copy and paste directly from that layer that you have already, this layer 1, because they're already cut out. You don't have to worry about changing blending modes or anything. They clearly, they look good. Yeah, totally. You can just bring them in just like that. Cool. So yeah, now at least we know they're the right height and everything in here, and you don't necessarily have to worry about a whole bunch of resizing. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend for both of you guys making a little spacer inside the calligrapher template, drag that over into your source document, and size these down based on that. Cool. Any questions, guys? So here I know it says like use a scanner, digital camera, or smartphone to capture your filled in template. And then on the fonts page, choose upload template. but you don't have to do that, guys. You're already in digital format here. You would just save this PDF and upload that PDF. Don't like, you're gonna lose quality if you take a picture of it and scan it. It's literally already digital at this point. That'd be about the only other thing I would recommend to you. Okay, cool, guys. Any questions at all?
Oh, no questions for me.
Oh,
Thank you
really?
for the help.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. All right, cool. Well, guys, have fun turning these into actual fonts. I'm looking forward to seeing these and potentially even using them. So next week on Tuesday, I will be giving you guys your next assignment. We've really got 2 assignments left. One is the next one's gonna be a very short one. We'll work on it over the course of 3 days. Then get your final project from me. Yeah, things wrap up actually fairly fast from here. So just be productive over the weekend. Set aside a little time to work on this. It's not hard, but it will take you a little bit of time to copy and paste those things over. But hopefully, again, some of these tips in terms of doing some of the resizing first will save you the trouble of having to copy paste and then resize over and over and over and over again, which obviously is no fun.
Oh, okay.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. And as always, if you need anything at all from me, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.